Indy Truck Davy out the truck and at home in his office in Salisbury, North Lanarkshire, where it is cloudy, 14 degrees, typical mid-September weather. That's the weather forecast for Salisbury, North Lanarkshire. You might know what the weather's like where you are. Look at your rain, bloody windy. Now, what brings Davy to your screens today? Well, it's something that I've been meaning to do for a wee while, and that's talk about the different social contracts that the people of Scotland have with the government in Edinburgh to the social contract that the people of England have with the government in London. Now, we're going to cover a few subjects here, a few areas here. It doesn't cover the complete social contract, but it covers the main gripes that the people of England have, or it's information that the people of England won't have. This particular video is aimed at our friends in England to try and get them awake and active to push for a better social contract for themselves than they have with their government. Now, what do I mean with social contract? Well, the areas we'll cover today will be education, health, taxation, utilities, benefits, but not quite in that order. It will be education, it will be health, it will be benefits, it will be utilities and transport, then taxation. Now, the taxation area, when we get there, will have to do with explaining why the people of England do not subsidise the better social contract that the people of Scotland have with their government, even though they are being led to believe that they do. So let's start with education, shall we? As we know, England and Scotland have separate education systems. But why is it better to have your children in education here in Scotland with the social contract we have than what it is to have your children in education in England, where the social contract, as I say, is different? Okay. Now, in education, we have more extensive help, early learning offering. And that's 1,140 hours of free childcare for 3 and 4-year-olds, extended to 2-year-olds for people who claim certain benefits. That's free. That works out about 30 hours a week of free early learning for every child in Scotland. Now, I believe that Westminster is now heading in that direction and copying the Scottish Government. Right. Now, also, in education, when we get to primary schools, we take better care of our children in primary schools. We have breakfast clubs. We have free meals for our primary school children from primary 1 to 5. That is to be extended from primary 1 to 7. When it comes to secondary education, the system's similar to England, where if you're on receipt of certain benefits, you get free school meals in secondary school. But the ambition is to extend free school meals to all school children across primaries and secondary schools as we move forward. Now, in England, we've seen Marcus Rashford go to war with the government, a footballer go to war with the government, set up charity to feed children in his area in schools. Here in Scotland, we will ensure that families on benefits during holidays get given the financial aid they require to replace or to cover the expense of having your children at home and having to feed them an extra time or 2 a day. Okay. Of course, our qualification system's different, and there's a bit of argument about which system is better at the moment. But when you look at the OECD figures and you look at what used to be the PISA figures, we're no longer involved in PISA here in Scotland because the OECD's got a much better criteria for measuring education systems, but there's very little in it. A few 0.0 points here and there, you know. It's very little. The education systems are more or less comparable, although in the past, to be fair, it had always been reckoned that an education in Scotland was better than it was in England. That seems not to be the case anymore, but we can put that down to the fact that the budgets are different and things like that, and funding models are different now. Now, as the people in England already know, higher education here in Scotland, they don't pay for tuition fees. There's no tuition fees in Scotland. In England, it's £9,000 a term for higher education. Here in Scotland, it's nothing. Also here in Scotland, a degree is over 4 years, which means there's more intensive learning within that period, and The degree is of a higher quality when it comes to the qualifications being accepted worldwide. It's one of the reasons why our university sector has so many overseas students in it. Okay, so that basically covers the difference in the social contract between the Scottish people and the English people and the government when it comes to education. We feed our children because we recognise that children who are fed have the energy and the ability to learn better. In England, they'd rather no feed their children, so the quality of the learning will depend on their wealth. We are trying to streamline it so that those education inequalities or what they call the attainment gap shrinks. And one of the best ways to do that is to make sure the children are fed and capable of learning, because the children who are hungry tend not to be able to, their attention spans are not there. Right, let's move on to the second one, and that is health and social care when it comes to the better social contracts between the people of Scotland and the Scottish Government in Edinburgh and the people of England and the English Government in Westminster. Okay, in Scotland, healthcare and social care are free at the point of need. Now, no matter how old you are here in Scotland, and normally in England, social care would apply to the elderly where it exists. But here in Scotland, social care applies to everybody with a need. Now, the funds for that social care are allocated to the person, and the person can then make the choice of which health social care provider that they use, and they can tailor their social care to their needs. That doesn't exist in England at all. In fact, social care in England is a bloody mess. There's no reason for it, it's just political will, but it is a bloody a bloody mess down that road, So social care is free and healthcare is free at the point of need. What do I mean by healthcare being free at the point of need? Well, the difference here in Scotland and the difference in England is there's no prescription charges here in Scotland. There are no dental charges for the under 25s in Scotland. Eye tests are free here in Scotland. How do we manage that? Well, we'll get to that when we get to taxation. Why is that not the same for the people in England? Political will. You are no pressing your government, you're no electing governments who have your social needs and your social cares at the forefront of their minds. Your governments are elected to get into power and make money for themselves. Our governments are elected to provide the social contract that the people want, because the primary duty of government is to protect and care for the people. The people are a country's best asset, like having healthy children and education, and well-fed children in education. They're the future. And the same goes with healthcare. So we don't charge for eye tests, we don't charge for dental for the under 25s, we don't charge for prescription medicines, because we need the workforce to be fit, healthy and educated. Now, we also have a baby box so that every new child that's born has a good start in life. Now, the baby box itself is actually a crib, which will accommodate the child for the first 6 months of life if the parent can't afford to buy a cot. There's a mattress, sheets, blankets, all goes into this box and it makes an adequate crib. Also in there is clothing, advice for parents, thermometer, food stuffs, some disposable and some territorial nappies, and some toys, and some literature that the parent can read to the child, which is good for bonding. All these things are very important for the well-being of a newborn baby. No matter how wealthy or poor the parents are, they have an equal start in life. So that's very important. So the healthcare contract here is better. And we also have a more modern healthcare estate. Modern hospitals, modern health centres. So we have much better facilities as well. Our waiting times are less. High because of the pandemic, but a bit less. Generally, we have a better staffed NHS as well, so the level of care is better. Now, as I say, These are things that are really important when it comes to a social contract between a government and its people. When we look down that road in England, they pay for eye tests, they pay for dental, they pay for prescriptions. What happened to the NHS free at the point of care? Now, I did a wee short on people using private medical insurance and private care. It happens. It happens everywhere. We have a two-tier system, but at least here in Scotland it's better. At least here in Scotland it is better. So the people of England, when you look north and you have a look and you say, you should be going to your own representatives and saying, hold on, why is there no prescription charges in Scotland? Why is there no charges for eye tests in Scotland? Why is there no charges for dental for the under 25 in Scotland? These are basic questions that you should be asking your representatives, because it's down to political will. Okay. Now, transport and utilities. Well, let's talk about utilities first and then we'll go on to transport. The utilities are basically the same here because most of them are reserved. The one big difference is Scottish Water. Scottish Water is still in public hands, so we don't have water bills. We're not charged by the litre. We're only charged for the infrastructure to get the water to our homes, which means we pay roughly £330 a year. Probably in some areas in England that'll be comparable with the private charges, and others will be more expensive than the private charges. But what we do have is tighter controls, and we don't have sewage getting pumped into our rivers instead of being processed. We do get sometimes accidental discharge because of floods, and we all UK-wide have a problem with slurry from farmland getting into our rivers. But on the whole, CPOP here, the Environmental Agency, is pretty strict. So I have to say that when it comes to utilities, our utilities are basically the same, but with the exception of water. And water is a fundamental need for life, and it's important that these things are in public hands. Okay, as to transportation. Now, we don't have any road tolls, we don't have any bridge tolls, we have free transport for 12 to 23-year-olds on public transport buses, and our over 60s get free public transport on buses and cheap rates on trains. We've just done away with the peak rates up here on trains, or we've got a trial period today with peak rate on trains, and we're really trying to structure an inclusive public transport network, which is usable and cheap. Rail fares here in Scotland are already much cheaper than what they are in the rest of the UK, and the railways in Scotland are now in public hands. We don't have the model down the road that you have, where you've got private companies running franchises. That's finished with here. ScotRail is now totally in public hands. So there's another aspect to the social contract which is better for the people here in Scotland. And the people in England should be looking at their representatives and saying, "Hoi, hold on a minute. How can the people of Scotland have this and we are no?" Okay, now as to let's move on to benefits and the social contract we have here and benefits. Now, since 2016 and the Smith Commission, we've had a devolved benefit system here, which covers 15 benefits, most of them to do with the disabled. The majority of benefits are still reserved, like universal credit and things like that. But disability benefits are devolved. We have 15 of them. Our benefit system, unlike the benefit system from Westminster, is not aggressive. It's not there to frighten people. It's not there to scare people. It's not there to force them into jobs that they can't do or are unfit to do. It is more caring and compassionate. But the big benefit, the change in the benefit system up here is UK-wide we have something called the child benefit. Every child gets it up to the age of 16. Here in Scotland, we have an additional child benefit that goes on top of the UK benefit. It's an uplift of £25 a week for the poorest families. £25 per child. That makes a big difference, and it has lifted 90,000 children out of poverty, helping somewhere in the region of 260,000 families. Amazing. All done by political will. Now, let's move on to the last one, the important one. Let's bust this myth for the people of England that the English people are actually subsidising the better social contract that the people of Scotland have with their government. It's not true, folks. It has to do with income tax and taxation. The majority of taxes are still reserved, but income tax is devolved. So how did we spread the burden more fairly across the Scottish people? Well, what we did was we introduced 5 tax bands instead of 3, which meant that the burden was shared more evenly across all the income levels in Scotland. All right, so what are these tax bands? Well, we've got the starter tax band. Now, the starting rate for tax is set in Westminster at £12,570. So our starter band starts at the £12,570 set by Westminster, and it goes up to £14,732. And in that tax band, you actually pay less tax than what you would if you were under the Westminster system. You pay 19%. Now, then we have what's called the basic rate income tax, and that goes from £14,777 to £25,688. Now, the people who are in that income bracket pay 20%. You see where this is going. The more you earn, the wee bit more you find. Then we have what's called the intermediate rate. And then the intermediate rate is for £25,689 to £43,662. Now, in this income bracket, the tax rate, the basic tax rate is 21%. So you see we went 19, 20, 21. Then we get to what we call the top rate. Or sorry, the higher rate. Now, there's a massive jump when you get to the higher rate. If you're earning £43,663 to £150,000, then in this particular tax band, because you can afford it more, you pay 41% tax, income tax. Now, you might say to yourself, "Oh, Davy, that's a huge jump." It is, but the average earnings in Scotland is £24,000. So what you're basically doing is making sure everybody's got enough, and those who can contribute more do contribute more. And then we have what's called the top rate, and that's for people who earn over £150,000 a year, and they pay 43% income tax. So this carry on about England subsidising Scotland's better a social contract with government than what England's got with its government. It's rubbish. It's political will. We needed to raise money to ensure that we had free tuition, we could feed the children at school, that medicines were free at the point of care, dental was free for 25-year-olds, transport and infrastructure was cheaper and better for the people. We just spread the tax burden across those who could afford to pay for it. And that's all you have to do in England. All you have to do is get up your arse, demand that you get the same contract with your government as the Scottish people have got with their government, and demand that they put proper taxation in place to make sure the burden spread fairly across the people. So as I say, this one today, this wee Davy Short, was an infomercial and a wee spur for the people of England to get off their arses and to start demanding the same social contract that the people of Scotland have with their government, so that you get a better life in England and fairer and better public services. Because we have maps that there's not just small, and they're not just literally better, just no, it's a wee bit better here in Scotland. They're massively better. You know, they talk about people, if we put the taxes up in the higher bands, they'll flee to England. No, they won't. They need to start paying for dental care. They need to start paying for medicines. They need to start paying for eye care. They need to start paying tuition fees. The savings for being in Scotland in the higher tax bracket, believe it or not, still outweigh the more we ask them to pay. Simple as that. There's nobody going to flee because of our more progressive and fairer tax system. And if people in England would like a better social contract with their government, then I've just given you the model. I've just told you how to do it. So when you're sitting down there being lied to by your local politicians and your representatives telling you, no, we can't afford it, no, we can't afford it, they're telling you lies. If we can afford it here in Scotland, let's face it, I mean, our more progressive tax system raises between £500 million and £750 million a year to get into public services, specifically public services. Your population is 10 times that size. So there's another 6.6 billion right away. Ring fence it for public services. There you go. Ring fence it for education and healthcare. There you go. So this was a wee public service broadcast for the people of England. If you want better public services, try a more progressive tax system. And when you're being lied to down that road and told, no, we can't afford it, point north and say, how come Jock can do it? The answer is more progressive taxation. You remember, we only have one real tax power, the Balties. And look what we could do with that income tax power. Date yourself. And Dundee is still a mess. And a lot of Scotland's still a mess, Martin Williamson. The reason for that is because I've just explained to you, the majority of things are still reserved. But it's very difficult to get that through to the thick. So that's the end of my infomercial for the day, folks. If you're in England and you want a better social contract with your government than you have at the moment, look north, learn the lessons for the Edinburgh Parliament, and start demanding the same of your representatives down that road. Anyway, that's a Davy Shot for a day. Hope you found it informative. I hope you found it interesting. Share it across your social media platforms if you want to.